Have you ever stopped to wonder why the second you hear that little ping from your phone, your hand just automatically goes for it? You don't even think about it, right? Well, that's not some random habit. It's actually deep psychology at play, and it's the perfect way to kick off what we're talking about today. Okay, let's do this. Welcome to your personal exam cram session on learning and, you guessed it, classical conditioning. We're going to break down what learning really means, get into the basics of behavioral theories, and of course, dig into the story of Ivan Pavlov and his very famous dogs. Our goal? To get you totally prepped for that test. So first things first, we have to make sure we're all on the same page. Let's start with the big question. What is learning? Now, it might sound simple, but in psychology, that word has a really specific meaning. So here it is, the textbook definition. Learning is a long-lasting change in how you think and act. And this is the crucial part. It's caused by experience. We're not just talking about memorizing dates for a history test. We're talking about fundamental shifts in who you are because of what you've been through. And this brings up a super important distinction, one that you'll definitely want to remember. Learning is not the same thing as development. You see, development is all about the natural changes our bodies go through, like growing taller or your voice changing. But learning is different. Think about a little kid who gets super anxious just seeing a needle at the doctor's office. That's not development. That's a learned response from a past, probably not so fun experience. Okay, so if learning is based on experience, how do psychologists actually study it? Well, that leads us straight to a major school of thought, behavioral theories, which take a very particular and very observable approach. The key word here, the only word that matters to a behaviorist, is observable. Seriously. These theories aren't interested in what you're thinking or feeling on the inside. All that stuff is invisible, right? Instead, they focus entirely on what they can see and measure, actual observable changes in how someone acts. If they can't see it, it doesn't count. And this obsession with observable behavior brings us to one of the most iconic experiments in the history of psychology. Yep, you know it. It all started with a Russian scientist, a bunch of hungry dogs, and a very interesting discovery about what made them drool. We are, of course, talking about the one and only Ivan Pavlov. What he discovered is what we now call classical conditioning. So let's walk through his famous experiment, step by step, to really see how this whole thing works. Okay, step one, this is our baseline before any real learning has happened. Pavlov shows a hungry dog some food. Now this food is what we call an unconditioned stimulus. Unconditioned just means unlearned. It naturally, automatically makes the dog respond. And what's that response? Drooling, of course. That's the unconditioned response. It's a reflex, pure instinct. All right, step two. Now Pavlov introduces something new, a bell. He rings it. What does the dog do? Nothing, really. Maybe its ears perk up, but there's no drooling. The bell at this point is a neutral stimulus. It's just a random sound that means nothing to the dog in terms of food. Now for the magic. Step three is where the learning actually happens. Pavlov starts ringing the bell right before he gives the dog the food. He does this again and again and again. Bell, then food. Bell, then food. The dog is still drooling because of the food, sure. But in the background, its brain is starting to build an association. It's connecting the dots. And boom. Step four, the big reveal. After pairing the bell and the food enough times, Pavlov tries an experiment. He rings the bell, but this time there's no food. And what happens? The dog drools anyway, just at the sound of the bell. That bell has been transformed from something neutral into a conditioned stimulus. And the drooling? That's now a conditioned response. A brand new behavior has been learned. Okay, so you've got the story down. Now, let's get the science right. These next few terms are absolute gold for your exam, so you're going to want to lock these in. Ready? First up, the unconditioned stimulus, or US for short. Think of this as the natural automatic trigger. It's the thing that causes a reaction without any learning at all. In Pavlov's lab, that was the meat. Simple as that. Now, every automatic trigger has an automatic reaction, right? That's the unconditioned response, or UR. It's the reflex. The meat shows up, the dog drools. Again, totally natural, completely unlearned. It just happens. Okay, now we introduce the outsider, the neutral stimulus, or NS. At the very beginning, this thing is totally meaningless. It's just part of the background. The bell, before Pavlov started his experiment, was just a sound. It didn't do a thing. But here's where the transformation happens. When you parry that neutral stimulus, the bell, with the unconditioned stimulus, the meat, over and over again, the brain literally rewires itself. The bell isn't neutral anymore. It becomes the conditioned stimulus, or CS. It's now a learned signal that means food is coming. And that new learned signal creates our final piece of the puzzle, the conditioned response, or CR. This is the new learned reaction to the stimulus that used to be neutral. The dog now drools when it hears the bell, even without food. And that, my friends, is classical conditioning. So what's the big deal? Why do we still talk about this 100 years later? Because Pavlov's work was absolutely revolutionary. It proved for the first time that even our most basic, involuntary reflexes, things like drooling or even emotional responses like fear, could be changed and controlled by experience. All right, let's wrap this all up. We've covered a ton of information. So here's your final cheat sheet to make sure it all sticks in your brain. So remember this. Learning is a change that comes from experience. Behavioral theories, they only care about what you can see. Classical conditioning is simply learning by association. And the whole thing boils down to that magic formula. You take something neutral, pair it with something that gets a natural reaction, and pretty soon that neutral thing starts getting the reaction all on its own. Which brings us right back to where we started. That notification sound on your phone, it used to be just a neutral sound, but your brain has paired it over and over again with the little reward of getting a message or a like. It's become your conditioned stimulus. It's your bell. So think about it. What other bells are out there in your life making you react without you even realizing it?